Jeff Paterson is our Canucks reporter, the host of RinkWide Vancouver. Will be busy again this weekend with the Canucks facing Minnesota tomorrow. And, of course, coming off a perfect road trip, or the itty-bitty road trip, but they sweep Dallas and Colorado to finish the road schedule on the year. Jeff, how are you?
I'm good. And I was happy for the people that made the trek to Greta last night. Look, low expectations, obviously, with a game that didn't mean anything. So I was there before the game and had a chance to chat with a few. And I know you guys were there through the hockey game. So hats off to Canuck fans that made the effort to get out to Greta one last time for a watch party.
And Jeff, hats off to this group of players, missing who they're missing. We've talked about this all week. The effort and work rate on a night-to-night basis is commendable. And we've been talking about that's got to be a commentary on how they feel about this coaching staff, right? That they're still playing this hard for Rick Tocchet and company this late in the season when all is lost.
Yeah, Rick Tocchet said it a bunch this week that his message has been there are always eyes on you, and essentially basically saying whether it's in the Canuck organization, whether it's outside the Canucks organization, these guys that want to be everyday NHLers, the opportunity may not present itself here in Vancouver, but there are 31 other spots, and apparently there's going to be a few others joining the mix here when Gary Bettman gets his way. But, just there are reasons to play hard. And it seems that the players certainly have bought into that. And, we've said it's been a highly disappointing season. We get that. I think everybody understands that. But now, as the fan base starts to turn its attention to, okay, what is this roster going to look like next year? Then, you want to see Aatu Räty rise up and continue to play well. Kiefer Sherwood's been an incredible story all season long. How can you not pull for this guy to get a 20th goal here before the end of the season? And the way he's going, it wouldn't surprise me if he exceeds 20 goals for the first time in his NHL career. Look, they committed to Kevin Lankinen. It's been a little bit of a rocky road the second half of the season, but guys, his next appearance is going to be his 50th of the season for the Vancouver Canucks. Think about that for a guy that joined the club on the eve of the preseason. And I was really happy for him because I thought he played well against Vegas on Sunday and didn't get a win, and that extended his individual losing streak to 4. And so he didn't want to go into the summer after all the work that he had done to earn the contract, on a personal losing streak. And so I thought he rose up the 2 saves that he made early in the third period when it was 2-1, and then Dakota Joshua scores at the other end and extends the lead. I thought Kevin Lankinen was really good. So I was happy for him in a mean-nothing game ultimately, but individually there are some stakes there. And I think for Lankinen, it was just nice to see him rise to the challenge and ultimately have the team in front of him play well enough to deliver a victory.
Just quickly, that's his last start of the season for you?
Oh, I don't think they're going to run Demko out 3 in a row. I would imagine they continue to alternate here. So, give Demko the Saturday night game and then the final game of the year, and you can slide Kevin Lankinen in there on Monday night against the San Jose Sharks.
We have to talk about Elias Pettersson quickly burrowing himself into the hearts of Vancouver Canucks fans. Jeff, what did you make about his fisticuffs and how he is ending the season?
Hey, led in Corsi and expected goals too.
Yeah, let's roll it back to Tuesday night in Dallas when he sits Mikko Rantanen down on his ass. Like, Mikko Rantanen is a big dude. I think they call him the Moose or the Bull or whatever his nickname. Like, he's a big guy, and D-Petey threw him around, and Rantanen didn't like it, came back, kind of gave him a shot. They got matching minor penalties, but right there I thought, like, wow, all right. Like, this guy's not messing around. That's a star player, and he's not giving him the star treatment. And so we have seen that really from the moment he stepped in, and even last year when he came over and made his debut. Remember, I think Lecker-Mackey got a rough ride down in Abbotsford, and the first guy to come to his defense was D-Petey, who was still finding his way in North American hockey, but it kind of showed then that, look, this guy, he's up to the challenge, and he understands his role and his assignment, and we've said that. And, there have been a few speed wobbles along the way in terms of his play, and they have sheltered him in his minutes for the most part, but that's all part of developing a young player. But as far as coming up swinging, very little defense in that fight last night. Both of those guys were chucking. And look, he gave a couple, he took a couple, but what a scene when he comes out of the penalty box and, the camera's cut to the bench and the guys are all standing and the stick taps. And then, of course, Rick Tocchet makes his way down and the big pat on the shoulder and the helmet. That kind of stuff is going to endear himself to teammates. But more than that, as Rick Tocchet said post-game, a few more of those, and other players around the league are going to understand that that's in his arsenal. He's not going to do it every game. He shouldn't be expected to do that every game. But if circumstances arrive, that was a rise, totally organic. I have no issues with that. It wasn't a staged fight. It wasn't, late in the game where somebody was trying to exact revenge. It was organic. It came out of two guys battling in front of the net. He throws O'Connor to the ice. O'Connor comes up and away they go. So, it's understandable why people are on the D-Petey train, and so they should be. He's fun to watch. And again, it's remarkable to think this guy was a third-round pick not that long ago, and here he is doing his thing and not looking out of place at all in the National Hockey League.
Mancini ended up getting to 50%, Corsi 4 as well on the game. Like, it's starting to come for the other big guy on Dean. He had that fabulous shoulder-to-shoulder check, coming back on the back check to thwart a chance as well. There's some development there happening, right? When you start to play every night, you see these young players really start to take off.
Yeah, and I think with Mancini, D-Petey's curve has been pretty steady, and that's kind of the book on him. It's just, you know what you're getting, and he brings it just about every night. Mancini, I don't think we've seen the high end, obviously, yet. We've seen some shades of it, but we've also seen a few more miscues than maybe you'd like at the NHL level, but that's what's going to happen. You're going to get exposed from time to time against the best players in the National Hockey League, but I like the way that they've used them. I hope Tyler Myers is okay. Nobody seems to know exactly what's going on, but the one benefit of Myers not being available is that both these young guys have become every night players here for the last week or so, and we'll see if that continues with 3 games remaining on home ice. I think if Tyler Myers can play, he's going to get back in there, certainly for the season finale, you would think. But again, we'll get updates on some of the injured players at Saturday's morning skate. Full team day off coming off the road here, so we just don't know. But I mean, look, the Canucks have said repeatedly, Mancini was a guy they wanted. He wasn't just a throw-in the JT Miller deal. Big, right shot, skates well. You can see the raw materials in place there. But, I think he still needs, obviously, some help in terms of his reads, defensive positioning, and,
He's not comfortable yet on the puck, Jeff. That'll come just with more touches, more handles, more experience. But
and he seems like he's, my limited dealings with him, but a few times I've talked to him, like just a really engaging guy that you can tell wants to get better. And I think getting an opportunity, look, he's got a relationship with Adam Foote going back almost 10 years. Adam Foote was a skills coach working for Kurt Overhart and his agency way back when, and got his hands on a teenage Victor Mancini. So these two guys go back quite a ways. And I think, there's a relationship, there's a rapport already in place. And we've seen what Adam Foote's been able to do with others at that position here with the Vancouver Canucks. And so if this coaching staff remains, you will see, I think, more of that development one-on-one, Adam Foote and Victor Mancini.
If we can stay on defense for a second, Jeff, because how many years did we bemoan not getting any kind of offensive production from the defense corps before Quinn Hughes, and then everybody but Quinn Hughes? Roenick with points in 4 straight now. It's a 47-point pace if he plays 82 this year for Roenick. And I saw you noting that Marcus Paterson is a half-point per game guy over his last 20. Like, all of a sudden, Jeff, like, they've got a back end now that is really helping push the pace offensively and lead to some of these offensive outbursts.
Every third game, Derek Forward's getting a point, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Right. So as they pack their hockey bags, it seems like they're taking surfboards with them, and they're all riding this wave right now of this offensive bender, guys. I did the math last night. In the last 20 games, they've scored 25 more goals as a team than they did in the previous 20-game stretch. So they've been a goal plus better per game over the last 20. And it shows up in the statistics, right? Pia Suter has basically been a point-a-game guy over that run. Kiefer Sherwood's having this incredible stretch of hockey as well. Somebody's got to get them to the puck. And earlier in the season, they were running out Noah Juleson and Vincent Desharnais. And remember when people were screaming from the mountaintops, you can't take Eric Brandstrom out of this lineup. Where's Eric Brandstrom these days? I ask you, where is Eric Brandstrom these days? I think he's in Buffalo system. Didn't he get traded again after he got traded from? Anyways, it just goes to show that, the defense is better. they're spending less time in their own zone. We're seeing them score off the rush, and a lot of times, the rush starts deep in their own zone, and away they go. And so the defensemen are collecting points. But yeah, Marcus Pettersson's not known as an offensive guy. I think there is enough in him as a well-rounded player that he can be productive. But when you've got Quinn Hughes ahead of you and you got Philip Hronek, you're not looking to Marcus Pettersson to light up the score sheet. But yeah, all of a sudden he's got 10 helpers in his last 20 games. And somebody came at me on social and said, "Oh, really? A point every other game? Like, we're calling that a success?" There are 27 defensemen in the National Hockey League this season that have 40 points. Yes, a point every other game for a defenseman.
Yeah. When that's not your best defenseman.
When it's one per team.
And when that's not your best defenseman, that's unbelievable. So I wanted to get to this offensive explosion here because what's notable to me, and you went back 20 games, what's notable to me, Jeff, is the pace doesn't decrease 10 games ago when Elias Pettersson leaves the lineup. And I know that's a small sample size. It's 1/8 of the season.
9 games, averaging nearly 4 per game.
So, but does it inform their decision at all going forward about, with that trade clause kicking in, that our offense did not suck? And it's not to say you don't still need a 1C and a 2C. You do. But does it give you a little bit more leash, a little bit more wiggle room to say, maybe we could make a trade involving the play? I'm not advocating. I'm just exploring the space here, Jeff. Does it make you think, if we traded Pettersson for somebody else, we're probably no worse at this point? Does that thought creep into your head at all, knowing the offense has gone up, or, relatively speaking, I guess it has gone up with him out of the lineup?
And I hear where you're coming from there. I guess I just don't know that there's a massive return if you're trading Elias Pettersson. I think somebody's doing you a solid and taking that contract off your hands. But in terms of getting a player of, somewhat equal caliber, I don't think that's happening. And so that's sort of two separate conversations then of, could you move him? You create more cap space. They've already got cap space. This isn't the summer necessarily, though, to, be the richest guy in the room and have all this money, because they're just, unless you're going to totally overpay on July 1st and try and lure some of the top free agents, and maybe that is part of their game plan, who knows. But look, I think it's opened the eyes of some other players that when they've been given this opportunity to play a little higher in the lineup, that it's worked out for them. I'm still not buying Pierre Suter as a 25-goal scorer every season moving forward, and so I do think that there's reasons to be a little bit cautious there. He has benefited from increased playing time, but if you get Elias Pettersson back and you also go out into the market and find another center, if Pierre Suter's back into being a third-line center on this team, it's not going to happen for him to be a 25. So as good as he's been, taking the opportunity and making the most of it, I still am going to look at Pierre Suter as sort of a 15 to 20 goal scorer as opposed to the 25 goal scorer that he's likely to finish this season. And as for Pettersson, again, guys, some interesting comments from Patrick Alvin we saw last year when he told Brock Boeser, yeah, good for you. You got 40, could have been 50. Telling Elias Pettersson that he sort of ought to spend his summer in Vancouver, and then says it's up to the player ultimately. We know that Elias Pettersson doesn't seem to react and respond to a lot of those types of things. And so I wonder if he would bristle at that suggestion that, it's been a long summer. He's got a lot of money. He's free to travel the world. They can't, tie him down to a chair at Rogers Arena here. But, there's nothing wrong with the suggestion that, look, all the infrastructure is here with the personnel, training staff, facilities, and all those types of things. Maybe it would be in his best interests. But I just wonder how Elias Pettersson would react to, the general manager basically telling him, like, don't stray far from town this summer. This is where you ought to be so that we can keep our eye on you and your training. I mean, does that not kind of come down to trust ultimately at the end of the day?
It does. And I think it speaks to Elias's previous summers. And I wondered, talked about this in the first segment, is this kind of a test, Jeff? If he agrees, great. If he balks, okay, maybe you do explore the trade.
I would agree with these are all, they're all sort of steps along the way here. And we already know that it feels like there has been a disconnect between the head coach, certainly, and this player throughout the season and the different ways that they've tried to go about motivating him. Look, if he is back, he needs a big summer. We know that. I mean, that much is obvious. And I do hope that, as a young professional, that he recognizes that he can grow and he can learn from past summers and he can be better and he has to be better. So, I mean, whether it's under their thumb and under their watchful eye or whether, he does go far afield this summer, I don't care where it is, but he's got to put in the shifts in the summertime to be ready to hit the ground running if he's back as a member of the Vancouver Canucks.
The chance to see Tom Wielander seems to be squeaking away here. Do you think he's going to be a Vancouver Canuck or merely Abbotsford Canuck before the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 games remaining after Saturday, so there is still time, I suppose, if the plan is to burn off that first year of the ELC. It sounds like the organization is hoping that he would go to Abbotsford, and right now, I think we should all want to. I want to go to Abbotsford. Like, what they've got going on there. It's just
joy in Mudville over there.
Seriously, like the environment there, what Manny's got cooking, and the fact that they're poised to go on some sort of playoff run. It feels like the right atmosphere and environment for a young player, and again, with other guys in the organization that essentially he'll grow with. There will be others that come out of Abbotsford in years to come that, for him just to get to know the lay of the land and the surroundings. He's been to a prospects camp in the past year, so he would be familiar on the surface level with some of the young guys. But I mean, to me, and I understand sort of both sides of that equation of wanting to burn the first year of your ELC so you get to your second contract faster. But from the Canucks perspective, there is something to be said about slow and steady development there. And cost control. And so if he doesn't burn the first year, then you got all 3 years of his entry-level deal when he begins, in theory, in the NHL next season. So first things first, his attention has to be on a national championship. And what a great way to finish his college hockey career, if in fact that's the way it all plays out, and a really good opportunity for him at it sounds like a special program there at BU. And here they are, one of 2 teams standing as they head to the championship game on Saturday afternoon.
Lastly, from me, Jeff, and we talked about this earlier in the week, but Quinn Hughes 2 points away, 3 to break Alex Edler's all-time record for career points by a defenseman. What else are you watching and monitoring here, be it statistically or otherwise, in the final 3 games?
Yeah, that's certainly at the top of the list. And with 3 games to go, I sure hope it happens at home. I mean, it's going to be a great accomplishment. We knew that it was inevitable. Still blown away by the fact that it's going to happen in roughly 500 fewer games than it took Alex Edler to get to the 409. So we'll see. I would like to have him to creep a little bit closer there in Colorado, but hey, he was held off the score sheet. He only played 24 minutes. They limited him against the Avs. How about that?
Scandal.
Yeah. There were a couple individual guys, right? Pius Suter, if he can get that next one to get to 25. Kiefer Sherwood, who got to 40 points last night, which is incredible, but at 19 goals, I would love to see him get one more to get to 20. Connor Garland's got the opportunity to get to 20. And I know that it's not a terrific derby, but Jake DeBrusk has nudged ahead of Brock Boeser again here for top spot in the goal scoring department for the Vancouver Canucks. So that's still very much up in the air, and Pius Suter's not out of the mix there with his 24 goals. So those are some of the things. And again, I want to see D-Petey. He's going to drop the gloves on home ice. I think fans would buy into that if it happens.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I think that welt on the forehead needs to heal. Let's let that thing heal first.
I lied. I had one more. I'm sure you saw Boeser's comments this week. Do you think there's any chance he's back, Jeff, or is this he's gone and the organization knows he's gone?
Look, Brock's handled this thing, I think, pretty damn well when you think of all the things and all the noise that have gone on around him this season. And if they wanted him here, they would have had a deal by now. And we understand sort of the negotiations of it. And through it all, Brock has basically said very little. And when he has, it's been pretty diplomatic. And so for him to really break his silence and basically say, I think I'm done here, I think that spoke volumes and basically sounded like a guy that has turned the page. And so he's going to want to finish up strong. But boy, talk about an emotional 3 games for him. Has only known the Vancouver Canucks, has given them an awful lot over the decade since he's been drafted here. And, really, when you think about his season, At 25 goals, I don't think anybody truly expected that he was going to back up a 40-goal year with another 40-goal campaign. But, the headshot by Tanner Jeannot kept him out of the lineup for 7 games, and then a little longer after that for him to get his feet back and his hands back. So 25, if you prorate it, would have been close to a 30-goal season, which is, I think, kind of right there in the wheelhouse for Brock Boeser. Yeah. So, it hasn't been a terrible season by any stretch. It has been for the organization. But if you just base his year on reality as opposed to the expectations coming off a 40-goal season, I think he's been pretty good. Didn't love the 12-game drought right out of the Four Nations break. And, that covered the trade deadline as well. Like at the deadline, he was in the low of his lows this year. And so I do wonder if that gave teams pause. They're looking for players that are going to plug into their lineup to help them in playoff run and down the stretch. And Brock was really fighting it for a 12-game run there out of the Four Nations break as he adjusted to life without JT Miller, said so himself. But yeah, I mean, without a doubt, that is going to be something to watch here for these final 3. I hope Rick Tocchet, puts him in the starting lineup so that Al Murdoch gets a chance to, introduce him as one of the starters for each of these 3 games and let the crowd react, because he's not a perfect player, but he's a pretty solid dude, without a doubt. I think we all know that about him. And if this is it for Brock Boeser, then he deserves to be saluted here over this final 3-game homestand.
But given the quietness in negotiations, their inaction at the deadline is even more perplexing. Like, it seems like they were resolute in not signing him from the get-go here. And then not trading him just makes even less sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, again, I think you have to remember that at the Four Nations break, they were actually closer to the Los Angeles Kings above them than they were to the Calgary Flames, who were the closest pursuer. And remember, all the talk at the Four Nations break was, it's going to be Vancouver or Calgary. We're going to get another Canadian team. It's going to be one of those. Of course, nobody was talking about the St. Louis Blues, and then the Blues have gone on the heater of all heaters and have locked down a playoff spot now. So looking like the Canucks and the Flames are both going to be on the outside looking in. But at the Four Nations, and that was a couple of weeks before the trade deadline, like there was still reason to think that even if it was scraping in as a wild card, making the playoffs was a possibility. And I guess ownership and management decided to take that path as opposed to peddling the pending unrestricted free agents. Pius Suter has responded and played well down the stretch and has certainly bumped up his own bottom line as he heads to free agency, whether it's here or elsewhere. And for Brock Boeser, again, I do think that his individual struggles right around the trade deadline, I do wonder if a few teams looked at that and thought, is he the guy? Even though he had a great playoff run last year and the track record is there.
Yeah.
But he was really fighting it at sort of the wrong time of the season. Whatever the case, got through the trade deadline. He's still a Vancouver Canuck and will be for 3 more games at the very least. I'm sure there are Brock fans out there that want him back and think that this is just all part of negotiation. But again, those comments, really the first time that he has addressed it head on, make me think that he's turned the page at the very least. And we'll see. It kind of feels, doesn't it? In some ways, it feels like a guy that's been evicted from his rental. Like, I think Brock wants to be in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And basically the landlord has just said, nope, we're going to
feels like Survivor.
We're going to spruce up the unit spruce up the unit and rent it out to somebody else for next season. So stop the eviction if you're a Brock Boeser fan. But I think that ship may have sailed.
We'll be listening and watching RinkWide Vancouver tomorrow following the game against Minnesota. You're in here next week for a couple shifts with me, Jeff. Looking forward to that. And we'll catch up then.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend.